Good afternoon, and very welcome to the hydrogen economy in Indaba. So to all the audience, wherever you may be, we've had some international guests, so whatever time zone and location you're at, a very good warm welcome. My name is James Mackay. I am the director with PwC. I lead our energy and infrastructure strategy practice. So to just sort of get going and set the scene, this is the third episode in a series of 4 hydrogen webinars, and I think it's been a very exciting sort of period. I think everyone has seen a lot of media coverage recently. I'm just looking here from last week's event. Government committed to driving growth in the hydrogen economy from the Deputy Minister Majola. The Vaal SEZ to become South Africa's preeminent hub for the hydrogen economy. Another one here, South Africa can build a new economy through green hydrogen. I think we've also, if anyone has been listening today, has been our Presidential Climate Change Commission. And they've also been targeting and showing a real important role for hydrogen in South Africa going forward. So I think a very exciting afternoon ahead of us. So also just to recap, the first 2 episodes in the series was defining the opportunity in the market for green hydrogen, then looking at ownership and participation. And today we are specifically focused on skills and development. And next week, you can look forward to the last in the series on regulation and policy. We also have a few exciting things. We have a word cloud running in the background, so we can take a temperature of the audience and see what everyone is thinking. Please give your expectations and any ideas, and it will pop up on the screen later. The organizers will show what the audience is thinking and what the key focus areas and key focus words are in relation to green hydrogen. So I think that will be great. In terms of the lineup today, we have a fantastic set of speakers, guest speakers, and then a panel discussion. First up will be Ms. Diksha Lalith from PwC, and I will introduce her shortly. We then are very honored to have the Honorable Minister Bladen Zamande to be talking to us, and then we have from Wits, Prof. Kenneth Ekechukwa. So we look forward to those keynote speeches, and then moving on to a panel discussion where we will also have a representative from SATU, Mr. Maluleke. Okay, so just moving back into setting the scene, and a few quick words just from myself. So achieving net zero from a global perspective has been estimated somewhere at a cost of about $130 trillion to get there by 2050. I think everyone on the call, and if you're showing interest in a webinar and a call such as this, we understand the importance of decarbonizing our economy and the challenge of the energy transition and moving to green fuels. So this energy transition, if one considers that cost, is possibly the single biggest growth opportunity that we will see for the next at least 2 decades. If I put that in perspective, even a moderate target of 4 million tons per annum of green hydrogen production in the South African context, in terms of we've been doing some of the demand and capital modeling, would come at a price tag of about 2.5 trillion rand that we would need to spend between now and 2040. So one can see the scale and importance of green hydrogen and the development and the ties that brings together decarbonizing our economy, large capital investments of financing, the importance of energy transition, energy reliability, as well as industrialization. So the 3 areas where green hydrogen will really start coming together in terms of our economy is, number 1, production of green hydrogen for exports into the global market. This will be a huge opportunity for foreign direct investment as well as foreign earnings. Number 2 will be production for our own domestic markets and the transition of important industrial sectors like steel, cement, and mobility. even shipping and marine bunkering will ultimately need to move on to green fuels. And thirdly is the development of our industrial capability in order to look at manufacturing of the components that go into the electrolysis renewable energy that is required to make green hydrogen. So if we look at the size of this opportunity, I think what's very clear is that amongst the enabling environment, and one of the clear ones is going to be regulatory and policy, which we'll hear about next week. I think financing and the ability to raise that level of capital and spend it well talks to a lot of what's currently happening in the media. We hear from entities like Infrastructure South Africa, Dr. Sputler Amagopa, and the importance. We've seen the sort of the new National Infrastructure Plan 2050 also highlighting the importance of green hydrogen development. So as this sector develops and we look at the industrialization, one of the key questions will be, how will we develop such skills and technical partnerships? Do we have such technology and ability to increase capacity? And it's not just about the technology of capital development and manufacturing of equipment, but it goes to the talking of driving and delivering a sustainable green economy for South Africa. So if we think of things like circular economy skills, sustainability, the just transition, reskilling, there are many other areas where we need to look and design an appropriate long-term strategy for skills and development in our country. Okay, so with that brief introduction, I don't know if we've got anything on our word cloud that's running from the organizers. Let's have a quick look. So I think what we're seeing today, high expectations, high energy. We'll take it on this call. We need good and high energy, but it was interesting. I was on a recent call last week talking about the difference for Africa between, it's actually the Africa Energy Forum, the difference between energy poverty and energy transition. Energy poverty is significant across Africa. And one of the examples that we put out was that in sub-Saharan Africa, you have roughly 1 billion people, and excluding South Africa, sub-Saharan Africa has the same generation capacity as Germany, looking after roughly 83 million people. So energy poverty is incredibly important. It talks to the Sustainable Development Goals. And again, the transition that underlies that is that Africa needs to be able to leapfrog technologies and adopt green technologies going forward. And I think this directly speaks to the ability for South Africa to play a leading role in developing its green hydrogen sector. So without further ado, I think I'm going to introduce Diksha. Diksha is also director with PwC. Her key focus is workforce transformation, new world, new skills, strategic workforce planning, skills assessment, as well as training and development. She's conducted large-scale workforce transformation assignments across industry and in East and Southern Africa countries. On a macro level, she drives the link between economic upliftment and skills development as a leader of workforce transformation in the government and public sector industry. So I think that is the perfect lead-in for how we can start thinking about developing our skills and development within an energy transition that is just and beneficial to all South Africans. On that note, I'm going to introduce Diksha and bring her in for her presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. I'm just going to remove this. Good afternoon, colleagues. It's such a pleasure to be with you here today. I am having a few technical difficulties, so please bear with me. I will just ask quickly if everyone can hear me and see the presentation as well.
Yes, we can see your presentation. Please proceed, Diksha. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So I think given the context that James did give us, what we wanted to do today is really just share some of our thinking around job creation and also skills development, centering around the green economy and also hydrogen within the South African context. And I think over the last few seminars that were hosted, there was, the need for investing in the hydrogen sector has been spoken about quite a number of times. But what we really wanted to focus on here or zone in is around skills development. What is the impact on the South African economy, and what can we already start doing right now to prepare for the actual future, and what will those jobs look like? So really, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. What we wanted to do here is just to highlight the importance of skills development in consideration of all the other factors that we actually have to take into account as we build this industry within the country. So moving straight into it, a few of the areas that we wanted to touch on and that I will highlight here is the emerging skills and new skills that we need to start preparing for as we hit the 2040 mark of actually growing the sector. And I think the first skills that we wanted to highlight here is really around developing those green career pathways. The most important thing here, and I will highlight it throughout the presentation, is firstly looking at what is our current demand and supply in terms of the skills we will need to start developing. And we'll also speak a lot about how the CETAs and the universities now need to start playing together to start developing curriculum to ensure that there is a pipeline from education to service the needs that we will see within the country. The next thing is that even though we are focusing or seeing a lot of technological skills that need to be developed in this space, we also need to focus on those natural capital skills. And these are careers around environmentalists, hydrologists, biochemists that will start, they are current, but they will be emerging and become more and more critical in this specific industry. The next one then focuses on those green engineering and technology skills. And here, while we have been focusing on developing STEM skills, the importance is really to understand it across industry and to ensure that there is a specific emphasis placed on green technologies and what that has, or the effect that has on jobs and emerging skills that we need to start preparing for. The next one then centers around infrastructure and capital planning. And here again, as this industry grows, there will be an influx of skills requirement around large-scale development, investment skills, project management, program management type of skills that will become more and more critical. And linked to this is around that green architecture and future cities planning. Again, planning the cities of the future, ensuring that construction skills related to the green economy that will be or will require significant development in the next few years. I think going back to what James also spoke about was that environmental justice and just transition. And here again, this is the intersection of human rights and environmental rights to ensure that as we are developing these skills, that the intersection between policy, legislation, and all of those different aspects get pulled in to the development of skills and job creation. The next one is around circular economy skills, and James also touched on this, but this will be a critical area that we have yet to develop, and we need to place a lot of focus on going forward in the next 2 decades, really. And then the last one centers around operation management and systems integration skills. Again, as we move into the next presentation where I break it down, or the next slide, into more specific skills, you'll see how certain roles start emerging around all of these different aspects. So that's just to create an overview, but I think just taking a step backwards, we need to also think about the current realities in South Africa. Right now, we're struggling with increasing unemployment. We're also struggling with skill shortages across a number of sectors. And we need to have or take that into consideration when we are developing the sector, because it obviously will play a major part in rebuilding our economy and creating those jobs. So I won't go into all of the details, but again, the target in conversations that were had previously is that 2.5 trillion will be invested into actually building this industry out by 2040. And with that type of investment, we obviously need to ensure that we have the skills and jobs developed over the next 2 decades to make this a truly lucrative part of our economy going forward. So what I've also highlighted in this slide is some of the new and emerging jobs that we'll start seeing. Some of them are current, but the shape and nature of these jobs are now going to change over the next few years. Change from the perspective that they will be focused or refocused really around green hydrogen. And you'll see there a number of emerging jobs are also around that: fuel cell engineers, manufacturers, technicians. But we're also looking here at the impact of technology on these jobs. So as we start embracing new technologies, artificial intelligence, how would these jobs start changing? What is the role of individuals in these jobs, and what are the requisite skills that they need? And these are important things or factors that we need to already start planning for and considering. So on the right-hand side, you'll also see a list of critical skills that are related to those emerging jobs. And again, these are skills that if I take project management, project development, your construction skills, IT skills, operational skills, and manufacturing, these are skills we know, but they will transform and they will transition and change in relation to this industry, and again, to the impact that technology will have on them. So the way that we have developed these skills in the past will need to transition. And again, this goes back to higher education institutions, TVET colleges, being able to actually be flexible in developing curriculums that are specifically related to these requirements we would need in the future. I think then just moving into the next stage, the question is really, where do we start and what is the impact of skills development on the sector? This roadmap, and they're not linear in activities that need to be conducted, but it really gives us almost a checklist of activities that between private and public sector we need to roll out or need to start rolling out in order to make sure that we have a future workforce that would be able to deliver on the priorities and requirements of this industry. So if I go through it quickly, just to give you a view, and it is very important to understand the starting point, is firstly to determine what the future skills and roles would be required. And in this instance, there's a number of different predictive analytic tools that are available, and the starting point is to actually leverage those tools so we can paint a picture of what this workforce needs to look like in 5, 10, 20 years' time and how it needs to transform. That would actually be the blueprint or the plan that we need to now start working off to develop skills. I think what we've done or seen in previous emerging industries is that there is upskilling initiatives, but they're not controlled, or the strategy and plan is not linked to those future scenarios. So this is a very critical state, is to map out that future scenario of what the workforce would need to look like to deliver or develop and mature this industry. The next piece centers around understanding what is our current supply of skills. So that the first piece looks at demand, the second piece looks at supply. And this is really doing a bit of an assessment across South Africa to also understand where the major skills gaps are, centering around those STEM skills and the ones that were highlighted in the previous slide. And then I think the middle piece, which is the gap that we see now, and it's that third block, it's really understanding how we start building a pipeline from higher education into the workforce. And this, there's a number of different elements that need to be taken into account here. Firstly, from a CETA perspective, what is CETA's role in ensuring that national unit standards are developed for the energy and hydrogen subsectors specifically, and then playing a big role in collaboration or partnership with higher education institutions and TVET colleges to ensure that curriculums are developed that speak directly to these new skill requirements. And I think if I just from my knowledge and research, what I've seen is the University of Pretoria, for example, is the one university we have that has created a short course on hydrogen fuel cells. But again, it's not a full detailed course. It does not give all the requisite skills that is required to now start building some of these future skills and roles that were highlighted previously. So a lot of focus will be required in closing that gap. I think the next part then centers around, and it will, cut across all of these activities, is then to understand really how this building of skills includes or informs diversity and inclusion initiatives as well across the sector. And then the next piece is what we were talking about, or what I've highlighted is supply and demand. But it's also linking, once we've built that vision and we understand what we currently have, is how do we then communicate that plan so that there is public-private partnerships and everyone or all role players, stakeholders know their role in actually developing skills that are aligned to a specific vision. Sorry, and then the last part centers around learning and development initiatives. And again, here there may be specific investment that needs to be invested in within the energy sector to really develop and grow these skills. So that's a critical component. And where we talk about learning and development, it's not just the formalized type of learning, but it's also the informal type of learning, awareness, communication that needs to be driven to ensure that we start building the skills within or across the country. And those are some of the major steps. What I quickly also just want to highlight is from a private organization like PwC, we are also playing a part in what we've built is this New World, New Skills campaign. It really does center around 3 different pillars, which we call the 3 C's. And this is how we're starting to develop these skills and also as building trust in society and solving important problems, which is our vision, we're concentrating on reskilling and upskilling individuals within the STEM skill space, but also the digital and technology spaces. So I won't go into all of the details. There is a call to action piece, which I said really focuses on driving awareness, and awareness is critical in building these skills. And the other part that I want to speak about is contributing, is really all, as I said, government and private sector working together to build these skills. So we have started this journey by collaborating with Unicef. There's a number of initiatives that we've actually run. You'll see there we've got the Techno-Girl initiative and the digital lab set up, where young individuals, and we're focusing on women in this particular instance because they haven't been, very included in this type of industry previously. But it's to develop their technical skills and to build them from secondary school into tertiary and then into the workplace. Some other areas that we've also hosted specific education conferences. We've also worked with other private sector institutions like APSA to roll out pivot programs and ensure that individuals are developed to move into the workplace, but also developing individuals or children, if I can put it in that way, from very young ages to start understanding the importance of developing their digital and leadership skills. And I think with that, I'll just pause and hand over back to you, James. Thank you.
Thank you, Diksha. Yeah, excellent. I think so many important points there. I like the concept of investing behind inclusion and diversity, because I think it's often a talking point which really just stays a talking point. And by making it real, actually identifying it and investing behind it, I think maybe we can do a better job. I do think that the other thing that you raised, or an issue that you raised, which maybe we should have put into the setting the scene, is really we in a position as a country at the moment, or an economy, the highest unemployment you mentioned, stagnant economy, economic growth, fiscal strain. We really at the moment don't have a great track record, and although we may be seeing some fantastic opportunities, what is really a little bit difficult to bridge is how will we actually anchor this? And as I said previously, this is very large capital, and we have multiple ministries that need to be coordinated, and really complicated policy and regulation. So I think that this really takes a very bold coordination and very bold policy direction. And certainly, we're looking forward to hearing from the Honourable Minister. Let me just see, is the Minister ready backstage, Jackie? Okay, perfect. The Minister's nearly ready. I would like to say I do a lot of work around net zero and energy transition, and one quote that I always come back to, which I really enjoy, is that the Stone Age never ended because it ran out of stones. It ended because it was time to change the way we lived. And I think that when we look at things, these opportunities like green hydrogen and the energy transition, it really is it's a carrot and the stick. We have to change the way we live. We've got to embrace and understand and drive this collectively, but at the same time recognizing that not all assets and not all jobs can be protected, and they won't be around. So those stones from the Stone Age will stay in the ground. We're going to leave coal and oil in the ground, but the opportunity to move on is significant, and I think we've got to embrace that and do it in a very structured and clear direction. So, okay, so I think that is the Minister ready, Jackie?
Yes,
there we go. Fantastic. I think very warm welcome, Minister Nzimande. I think you know PwC well. You recently were honourable guest speaker at our Africa conference on higher education, and so extremely warm welcome. I know that you've been running around and have had to struggle to make this call on time, but thank you very much. We are really looking forward to hearing from you. So over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Minister. If you could please unmute yourself, that'd be great.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Please proceed. We can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed, sir.
Yes, I'm talking, but it sounds as if you can't.
Please proceed, sir. We can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by greeting Mr. Mashudu Ramano, the co-founder of the Black Industrialist Association, the leadership of the National Society of Black Engineers, leadership of the BPI Foundation, owners of companies in the hydrogen economy, all invited guests, friends of the hydrogen industry, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I must start by apologizing. I have been to a construction site where we are building a new skills center right in the rural areas of Sekhukhune in Limpopo province. Nevertheless, it is a great pleasure to be here today at the Hydrogen Economy Indaba webinar series, episode 3. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to interact with you through this platform. I'm glad that despite the challenges that we still face due to COVID-19 pandemic, we are still able to host such important events where we gather and discuss the way forward for the country in line with the goals of the economic reconstruction and recovery plan as announced and led by our President Cyril Ramaphosa. The high number of participants in this webinar series is a clear testimony that there is a strong interest in hydrogen in South Africa. We see the same trend in Europe and around the world. In order for us to be prepared for the future role of hydrogen in the energy mix, our government is guided by a national hydrogen strategy, in short, HI-SA strategy, which was approved by Cabinet in 2007. The Department of Science and Innovation, the DSI, has since been implementing the 15-year Hydrogen South Africa program for the past 12 years. If anything, what the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us is the importance of science, technology, and innovation in our everyday life. Through the investments that started a decade ago, government was able to rapidly and in a coordinated way respond to the challenges presented by COVID-19. One such example was the rolling out of hydrogen fuel cell systems to provide primary power for field hospitals and medical facilities to support COVID-19 patients in some parts of our country. I'm pleased to announce that the hydrogen fuel cell systems deployed at number 1 military hospital in Pretoria are still being used to support the COVID-19 vaccination program. The deployment of fuel cells at number 1 military hospital is just one example of how we can use the technology in facilitating provision of public services and indeed other services as well, and the potential that the technology offers in transforming our economy. The Hydrogen Society Roadmap, which was approved by Cabinet now on the 14th of September this year, provides a clear indication of how hydrogen and fuel cell technologies could be a game changer for the South African economy, provided we all work together as government, private sector, and academia. Those who have not seen this roadmap, I urge you to familiarize yourselves with it. However, before we derive the benefits from the hydrogen economy, the following challenges still exist. Firstly, that technology has not matured yet to the point where it can be deployed in a cost-effective manner and at scale. Secondly, the infrastructure to support the deployment, particularly in mobile application, is almost non-existent in South Africa at the moment. Thirdly, the market demand is still very small. And fourthly, the world has been shaken by the COVID-19 pandemic with a negative impact on the resources to deploy the technology. Now that the Hydrogen Society Roadmap has been approved by Cabinet, may I use this platform to invite you today to join us and participate in the implementation of the proposed activities as outlined in the roadmap, which will be released to the public in the next few weeks. The implementation of the Hydrogen Society Roadmap can ensure that gender equality and social inclusion are at the core of the transition to a low-carbon economy, to tackle the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. However, this is possible if the following happens. Firstly, the participation by local communities in the reskilling opportunities to support the hydrogen economy, particularly in areas and towns that are most likely to be affected by the decline in the use of fossil fuels. For example, a province like Mpumalanga is going to be hugely affected by a shift away from coal to renewable energy. Secondly, the production of green hydrogen and ammonia is socially just and sensitive to the potential impacts on job losses in local economies. In other words, there must be a just transition. We also need to ensure that there are clear targets for women and youth in recruitment and human capacity development program targeted for the green industry. We also have to address the barriers for entry for women in the green industry sector, as highlighted in studies that have been conducted by other organizations like UNIDO of the United Nations. We need also to ensure that there are clear targets for women and youth-owned SMMEs involved in the strategic infrastructure projects and the hydrogen value chain in general. I therefore see the hydrogen economy as a story of hope. A hope for a new world with low emissions, a hope for a disruptive but necessary change, a hope for a new industry and sustainable jobs. For this hope to become reality, we have to focus on preparing our country to be a significant global player in the hydrogen economy through developing the necessary knowledge and skills in the hydrogen and fuel cell technology space. The Hydrogen Society Roadmap has clearly outlined how the workforce in the hydrogen economy will be developed. Our aim is to have a triple helix partnership between government, academia, and the private sector, and all this playing a crucial role in building the green skills, capabilities, and capacity. It is nevertheless my pleasure to tell you what we have done, what we have been doing for the past 12 years, as I indicated earlier. Through the Hydrogen South Africa program, we have put in place a good foundation for hydrogen research, development, and innovation projects and facilities. In short, we call these the RDI projects, research, development, and innovation. This was made possible with the implementation of the Hydrogen South Africa strategy by establishing the 3 centers of competence at Northwest University, and this center focuses on infrastructure. At the University of Cape Town, and this center focuses on catalysis, and at the University of the Western Cape, and this center focuses on systems. Over the past decades, the Hydrogen South Africa program has supported master's and PhD students with a focus on hydrogen production, storage, distribution, catalyst production, and skills in systems integration and technology. Or to be specific, technology validation. As you are all aware, as you may be aware, to date, 147 students have graduated, 104 with MSc degrees, and 43 PhD students. The production of green hydrogen is, of course, through renewable energy, such as solar and wind, and training in these skills is therefore critical. In this regard, my Department of Science and Innovation has established a renewable energy hub and spokes research program at Stellenbosch University to train postgraduate students on solar and wind energy technologies. Through Renewable Energy Hub and Spokes Research Program, a total of 452 postgraduate students have been trained from inception in 2007 through to 2019. This being made up of 335 master's graduates and 117 PhDs, with 55% of them, I'm pleased to say, being Black and 32% female. The importance of aligning the country's TVET college system with real industry needs and opportunities to improve labor absorption in the implementation of the hydrogen economy value chain is therefore critical. In other words, we need to look at the entire skills value chain in itself, from very high-end professional scientists to mid-level skills, like we are providing through our TVET colleges. A sectoral alignment with industry-specific requirements will facilitate a just labor transition where potential job losses in the traditional coal mining industry, for example, are mitigated through the upskilling, retraining, and onboarding of workers. In November 2020, my Department of Science and Innovation, I'm naming this department because my other department also is the Department of Higher Education and Training. But my Department of Science and Innovation, which has been a lead department on matters relating to the hydrogen economy as well as research, development, and innovation. The South African National Energy Institute, SANEDI, Energy and the Energy and Water Sector Education and Training Authority, the Water and Energy SETA in other words, Bambili and the University of Pretoria have all collaborated to launch a 6-week course to train unemployed TVET college graduates on the installation, operation, and maintenance of hydrogen and fuel cells. These are the important mid-level skills that I've been talking about. While the University of Pretoria offers a university-accredited introductory short course in hydrogen fuel cell systems, nevertheless, the course does not offer credits towards a full qualification as yet. The existence of an accredited occupational qualification underpins the success of growing knowledge on any subject. In this regard, the process to get the course accredited has been initiated, I'm pleased to say. To date, 25 unemployed TVET college graduates at N4 to N6 level and 9 professionals, that is government officials, have been trained. We envisage more partnerships to expand the training to more graduates as part of creating skills to support the hydrogen economy and address the high unemployment among the TVET graduates. And I also dare say that cooperation between, as I have said, business, academia, and government becomes very important, even in terms of driving forward skills development in this area. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are all aware that energy storage, that is the batteries, is also critical in the hydrogen economy. Let me emphasize that the batteries together with hydrogen fuel cells have a massive impact in the mobility or transport sector, as some would prefer to call it. We are implementing an energy storage research, development, and innovation program through local universities and science councils, and we have made significant progress in the establishment of world-class research, development, and innovation infrastructure, human capacity development, knowledge creation, technology development, and establishment of local and international partnerships. Based on this existing ecosystem, we will upskill and train TVET graduates in partnership with the private sector in the form of internships at some of the world-class pilot facilities located at the universities in order to prepare them for jobs in the emerging battery sector of South Africa. The 3 pilot facilities on this score, I'm pleased to say, are located at the University of Limpopo in Nelspruit, University of Limpopo and in Nelspruit at the University of Mpumalanga, as well as the University of the Western Cape in Cape Town, and Eastern Cape in Gqeberha, managed by the National Mandela University. In this regard, the DSI has allocated funding for 16 graduates from the TVET colleges and the universities of technology to undergo a 12-month internship program at the facilities during the 2021-2022 financial year. Looking at the just energy transition, the transition to a net zero carbon economy is expected to support a net increase in green jobs. It is also expected that there will be some job losses in the transition. We are therefore planning to put in place a Just Energy Transition Center to focus on reskilling marginalized communities, to take up opportunities in new and emerging energy areas, such as hydrogen and fuel cells, batteries, carbon capture and use, as well as renewable energy technologies. Our Department of Science and Innovation has also commenced with a research study to analyze the role of the TVET college system in the establishment of a hydrogen economy in South Africa, with the aim of boosting the capacity of TVET colleges to train a green hydrogen economy workforce. The study will be completed in February next year. The South African Institute of International Affairs is leading a TVET system skills study with support from the United Kingdom's Partnering for Accelerated Climate Transitions, UK Pact as it is known. The Institute of International Affairs has partnered with UK Pact on a program in South Africa. It's the South Africa-UK Pact. The initiative includes the University of Cape Town's Energy Research Center, Trade and Industrial Policy Strategies, and Bambile Advisory as project partners. The role of industry in developing these skills cannot be overstated, as I have said, and to date, several organizations have worked with Hydrogen South Africa to deploy much-needed research, development, and skills as South Africa seeks to deliberately grow its hydrogen economy. The platinum group metals mining companies, Impala Platinum and Anglo-American Platinum, as well as Sasol, have funded projects across the 3 Hydrogen South Africa centers of competence, ranging from technology development to deployment in real field applications. In line with the white paper on science, technology, and innovation, the Department of Science and Innovation invites more private sector involvement in executing the RDI scope and scaling up the deployment of technologies to support the implementation of the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, the one recently adopted in September this year by Cabinet. Government has demonstrated its commitment to supporting the hydrogen economy by approving the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, as I have said, and also extending the Hydrogen South Africa program. As I conclude, through the hydrogen economy, I want you to see new potential and new possibilities. I want you to bring forward new projects. I want you to invest with us for success. I also want to see meaningful Black and women participation in the whole of the hydrogen economy and its value chains. While the initiatives that I've presented today have set the foundation for the hydrogen economy in South Africa, the real work begins now and much more remains to be done. And I hope what I have shared with you gives you clarity and certainty in terms of what government has done, as well as what our plans are. So with this foundation, we are quite convinced as government that working together, we can indeed be able to build a thriving hydrogen economy in our country. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. It was a very encouraging and insightful discussion and presentation. I am very encouraged by, I think, that the success that's already being realised on the ground. I certainly wasn't aware of some of the aspects that you've raised there, and also the number of students already coming out with skills in this direction. If I reflect on some of the work that we're currently doing in around green hydrogen, one of the aspects that we see is that South Africa has some inherent competitive advantages in green hydrogen development, particularly in wind and solar. We've got good open land, so we have good infrastructure, we have good financial capabilities and those sort of aspects. There's certainly a very good sort of ambition and aspiration from government, which I think is extremely encouraging, and this is a huge opportunity, as you say. But what we do see is that we're lagging our competitors. So if we look at the sort of competing export countries in green hydrogens, for example, like Morocco, Chile, Australia, the UAE, these countries are managing to accelerate and already have projects on the ground developing. Their research and development institutions are driving very quickly forward around new technologies. So it feels that maybe there's a bridge that we've got to kind of cover to get South Africa back as a market leader, but it's very encouraging that the foundations, I think, are coming through very well. So thank you very much for your presentation, Minister. So switching across to more the technology side. So we have Prof from WITS. Prof, I must say, Diksha highlighted that your competitors in Pretoria have already got a hydrogen program. So you'll have to speak to your facilitators and see if you can also catch up. So let me just introduce Professor Uzumene. Holds the Professor Majozi full professorship in the School of Chemical and Metallurgical Engineering at the University of Wits. His research activities are focused on advanced batteries, fuel cells, and electrochemical sensors. He's a member of the National Academy of Science, Fellow of the African Academy of Science, Fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry, and a Fellow of the Association of Commonwealth Universities. So, Prof, you're really looking forward to hearing from you around, do we really have the capability and are we moving quick enough to capture this opportunity? Certainly the Minister has, I think, put down the challenge that from an education perspective, we are moving in the right direction. And maybe my question is, do we have the right skills at the right time? Are we getting on top of technology, and how do you see technology evolving? So, Prof, over to you. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and let's go forward.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please
Hello?
proceed, Prof. Please proceed. Yeah. We can hear you loud and clear, and your presentation looks wonderful. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to, first of all, send my warmest greetings to our Honorable Minister Blade Nzimande for sharing the same platform with us this afternoon. I want to thank all the colleagues and the members of the press, and I would please request that I stand on the existing protocol because I have only 20 minutes to give my presentation. Thank you, James. My name is Kenneth Ikechukwu Ozemena. I'm not Majozi. Majozi is a colleague, a friend in the same university as me. Okay, so I hold a research chair at the University of the Witwatersrand. My school is at the School of Chemistry, and just this year we started this new chair. But prior to that time, we have been working in the in the area of electrochemistry, electrochemical energy, hydrogen, fuel cell, and batteries, as the minister rightly pointed out. So today I was given this topic to give opportunities and challenges in upskilling South Africans for the hydrogen sector. So I thought I should stick to the topic I was given. For the presentation, I want to focus on just 5 areas, and the 6th one would be just a summary. So I will give an introduction of hydrogen economy. Many people have already discussed that since the beginning of this Indaba. So I wouldn't waste time. I'll go to the technical side of things. We'll also talk about skilling and upskilling the hydrogen sector. The effort being made by South African electrochemists at upskilling South Africans, because at the end of the day, this is all about electrochemistry. I have to put that forward. Good thing, our Honorable Minister has made life easy for me. He has already given all the effort fellow colleagues have been doing, have been making in training our workforce. Then I'll talk about the lessons that we have learned in terms of the opportunities and challenges, and then I'll summarize by giving some propositions or proposals. Okay, so I want to thank again Mr. Mashudu Ramano. I listened to his presentation in episode 1. He rightly described the hydrogen economy very well. Said it is one of the biggest and most significant opportunities for South Africa, as already described today by the Honorable Minister too. And it is a platform that can help us to transform the socio-economic microstructures of our society for the better. And through hydrogen economy, the country has the opportunity to address several challenges it is facing, all at the same time. I like that. And the challenge of energy security, economic development, economic transformation, and climate change, these are all challenges that we know that hydrogen economy can help solve. And he also gave 9 key themes for South Africa. He said STEMI, education across all sectors. So I will I brought this introduction just to say that this is really right, and it forms the backbone of what I will be discussing about electrochemistry. Okay. So hydrogen economy, I say hydrogen economy equals electrochemistry, and that is what it is. And we are not actually talking about this enough. I've been in the field in the last 16 to 18 years in the country, and I've been selling this gospel to our international community, bringing them here to help us understand this. I used to be at the University of Pretoria. Now I also went to, I was at the CSI as the chief researcher for 8 years, also talking about these subjects. And then now in the last 4 years, I've been at WITS. So today, Diksha also mentioned when she was talking about hydrogen fuel cell, the critical skills that are needed. She also talked about chemical engineering and electrical engineering for hydrogen fuel cells. So I thought she's also talking about electrochemistry, because it is about electricity. You use electricity to generate, to bring about chemical reactions, or you are using chemical reactions to bring about electricity. And hydrogen fuel cell or hydrogen economy describes that for us very well. As you can see here, when we have the electrolysis, in other words, we want to split water to hydrogen and oxygen, and the same hydrogen and oxygen can then be used to drive fuel cell. This is what we call 100% renewable. You are using only your electrocatalyst. You are using catalyst. Actually, this is the reason why we are here today, because both electrolyzer systems and fuel cell systems all require electrocatalysts, and the electrocatalysts that drive these two systems are found in South Africa. They are all PGM metals, platinum group metals. That is why we are quite excited about the hydrogen economy. Okay, so again, this is my explanation for 100% renewable. You can have your solar, use for electrolyzer, you split water. Water is H20 or O, H2O, it's chemistry. Then you can split it to oxygen and hydrogen. The same oxygen and hydrogen can now be used directly for fuel cell, and fuel cell will, of course, give us the electricity again, and again the water. The water can now go back to electrolyze, and this cycle continues. So you are only using solar to achieve this. So that is why we think that this is a hydrogen economy is a very good thing for the environment and for the world in general. So again, electrochemistry has been around in the last 200 years, and recently one of our very good friends, Professor Daniel Shessen of the University in the United States, Ohio, somewhere in Ohio. We brought him here in South Africa in 2013 when we organized the conference. And after that, he went back to the United States, and he was invited by the House of Representatives to talk about this so-called electrochemistry, what electrochemistry has done to humanity. And he says to them that it has emerged in recent years as a key to achieve sustainability and human welfare, improve human welfare. And without effort in electrochemistry, nearly all aspects of energy storage, like the minister said today, batteries or conversion, talking about fuel cells, including electric cars, electric vehicles, or even the wind and solar, none of them would exist without electrochemistry. So our cell phone that we use today is all about electrochemistry taking place without us knowing that. So it is about time we started saying this and making people to know. We have been doing that in the country as much as we possibly can. So recently we have this new South Africa chair initiative, SACHI, in materials, electrochemistry, and energy technologies. WITS is actually a new entrant into the field. That is why maybe, James, you're hearing about Stellenbosch and the University of Pretoria. So, but as we plan to celebrate our 100 years in existence, WITS has really taken this upon themselves that you will start hearing about our activities in the next 5 to 10 years. We want to be an institution where whenever you talk about materials, electrochemistry, and energy technologies, starting from the modern rechargeable batteries, lithium-ion batteries, to supercapacitor, fuel cell and electrolyzer, solid-state electrolytes, even electrochemical sensors will be there. So we want to take that, again, from basic research to technology transfer, and we are doing that. Not only me, but also other colleagues in different universities in the country. But this is what we are doing here. I'm just showing my own slide at WITS. Okay, so we train again so many students, as you see them here. Many of them are South Africans. This is this particular person. I can give you an example. He just finished his master's degree with distinction. His name is Nkosi Nkosi Nzimande. He is now working with our mitochondria as a development engineer. So these are some of the things that we should also know. And like you said, James, there are so many things that we heard from the Honorable Minister. We're very, very encouraging, but we are not aware of those. So it is about time we started speaking out some of these achievements in the country, because we are doing also those. Okay, so what do we mean by upskilling in a hydrogen economy? It is for me, it is beyond the provision of extra training, because upskilling means you are adding another training to what you already have. But we do not have, we have to have at least the first skilling before you start talking about upskilling. It is quite transform. It is about transforming and growing individuals by simply providing the skills, the knowledge, and the experience, or what I call attitude, that are most critical in the workspace. It is a transformational force. This is one of the languages used recently in a report by World Economic Forum. That was published in January 2021, and I think PwC was also part of this report. It is indeed a transformational force. There is no doubt about that, because it is one of the skills that can actually take us out of. If you have a country like us that have a high level of inequality, it can shift from low-cost labor to technology-augmented labor. I gave an example of a student now with mitochondria, just finishing a master's degree, distinction now with mitochondria, which is a leading hydrogen industry in the country now. So again, the hydrogen economy, what are the real skills that are required here? As Mashudu said in his presentation, is about STEMI. So I call it electrochemical STEMI. We need electrochemical science, we need electrochemical technology, electrochemical engineering, electrochemical mathematics. These are happening today all over the world. We talk about modeling, we talk about machine learning. You can actually tell what your fuel cell will be even without going to the lab to do that. Simply by sitting with a laptop, high performing computers, you can do that. Machine can learn to tell you that. And then you're talking about innovation. So this is a multidisciplinary subject. Multidisciplinary subjects. We at VIT we take students from chemistry, from chemical engineering, from electrical engineering, from physics. That tells you how diverse this subject is. So what are the efforts made by SA electrochemists at the moment? We have been training so many students. My group, for example, has been able to train over 50 PhDs and master's graduates, plus postdoctoral fellows. We have been trying to sell this subject to our country, thereby, first of all, trying to bring international conferences to our local here. We've done that over the years since 2013 to, in fact, 2013 we had one here in Pretoria, the CSIR. In 2019, just before the COVID happened, we had a big one in Durban. I will share some of the pictures also to show you. So we also take the students to overseas for short visits. We help them to network with leaders in the field. We teach them communication skills, teamwork spirit, entrepreneurship. Teach them about ethics. It's not just the electrochemistry. All these things are required in the workforce. So this is just an example. our training scale in 2008, while I was still at the University of Pretoria. I remember going to this institution in Germany with some of my students. You can see the picture. This was taken in 2008, about how many years now? You can see, here is me in this picture here. I was pointing, this is already happening in Germany. This is in Germany. And I'm very proud to say that these students, the young lady you see here is Nobanati Wendy Magzakato. She's now a professor at the University of Pretoria, no, at the University of Johannesburg, where she is a professor there as working in area of what we are talking about today, fuel cell or hydrogen economy. So we have so many of them. Okay, here, as you can see, this one is also at the University of Pretoria. This is Alfred from Zimbabwe. He's now moved to Australia. So this was so many years ago. We saw this, and a long time ago. So I'm very glad that this thing is happening now. In 2013, as I told you, we had to bring professionals, international professionals all over the world, and they came here to teach our students. You can see there are so many pictures that were taken then, and some of them you can get from this website. They are there available. So here is another one, the one I told you about that took place in Durban in 2019. This conference was supposed to have happened in Korea, South Korea. We competed with them to have it in South Africa. They wanted it in South Korea. We had to do everything in our power, and good thing they allowed us to host the 70th annual meeting of the International Society of Electrochemistry. As you can see, this is me here. This is Janice from Rhodes, and this is Dr. Nkulumate, and this is our president from China. This is from Poland, Portugal, and I showed you this picture because this is a lady from. I saw it yesterday. This lady is from Serbia. She was presenting on hydrogen economy, hydrogen fuel cell, as you can see here. So we are really on this. The next thing is the lesson. What are the lessons we have learned by scaling students? We know the opportunities are, first, we know that all the natural and mineral resources for hydrogen economy are here in abundance, here in South Africa. That is a good opportunity. People actually envy us when we talk about fuel cell, when we talk about electrolyzer or batteries. The government has been quite generous in supporting scholarship in South Africa through NRF and DSI. The opportunity again is there is an encouraging partnership between industry and academia. Yes, more can still be done. We can still do better. Again, we know that South Africa leads when it comes to STEMI and scholarship in the continent. It's a great opportunity for us. There is an increasing international interest on Africa for so many reasons, because of our natural resources and the hydrogen economy. Because if there is any continent that can deliver hydrogen economy or hydrogen energy, it is Africa. They know that is a well-known statement. The challenges we are having, of course, are many. Poverty still exists in the continent, in our country here. Despite the best efforts of the government, we still find students. We want to upscale, but when you have a student who's coming from a very poor background, when he or she gets a first degree, she would want to go and look for work. So it becomes difficult to convince them to do a master's and PhD degrees. This is a sector where everyone is technically equal. We talk about inequality in the country, but I can tell you, in the hydrogen sector, I think there is no inequality there. Everybody is technically equal because we do not have the skill. The skills, just like Diksha also mentioned, there is she said something about the university. The universities are not producing enough. There is a weak pipeline. That's her word. Weak pipeline from education. So that's the problem we're having. The universities at the moment are experiencing a lot of problem when it comes to research funding. Again, another challenge is the issue of training and retraining. Most of our students, the moment they graduate, they are taken by the EU countries and the USA. I use myself as an example. My students, some of them are in Sweden, in Europe, and America, working in very good laboratories there. So it's a challenge, but it's a very good challenge also for us. Hopefully, we would want them to come back before they retire in their careers. So the final one is that electrochemistry is still at a developmental stage in the continents. And that's a very huge challenge we're having. So to summarize, I have to propose some solutions. It's not, we don't want to just talk about the challenges and then leave them there. We have seen that electrochemistry is the transformational force for skill development in the hydrogen sector. So we are proposing increased partnership with countries and industries. The government has been helping us to do that. We have so many bilaterals. Some industries are really coming on board. I see them now. You know, when you check the NRF website, you see industries like Sasol and NRF collaborating, you know, to train students. That's a very good development. We can still do more. We need to encourage industries and academia for skill development. We need to do that. Is still a problem, but I'm also encouraged by what the minister said, the honorable minister said this afternoon about what is happening in the country. We want electrochemistry to be an integral part of our curriculum. If I have my way, that is what should happen. From high school to tertiary institutions, I've had the privilege of going to high schools here to talk to grade 11, 12 students about electrochemistry. And you can see how excited these young ones can be whenever you talk about what electrochemistry is all about and what it is doing in our life. There is we need international and intra-Africa cooperation and recruitment strategy. That is something we have to do. We are not doing that enough. Actually, I think it seems that some people are doing that for us at the moment. For example, we have this the EU-funded intra-Africa academic mobility. I'm showing you the logo. We are part of VIT is part of this project now. Is funded by EU, and it involves some African countries and universities. And it is all about electrochemical science and innovative materials for sustainable Africa development. There we are talking about the same hydrogen economy. I would also want that, okay, at the moment you can see that it is fully funded by EU. Fully funded by EU. That is, they want us to collaborate within Africa. Not even with them. The mandate is that it has to be Africa relationship. It has nothing to do with the EU, despite the fact that EU is funding it. What EU is doing is just being the technical partner institutions. Now I suggest that in terms of this, there is a need for us to have technology experts at our various embassies all over the world. I'm not sure if this is done. I hope it is done. Where we have at the embassy, you have technical or technology experts who are there to hunt talents. We shouldn't be afraid of that. That is what many countries are doing now. They are doing that to get people to teach, to upskill our workforce. We cannot do that alone, and there is no way we can do that alone because we don't even have the skills, let alone harden it. So I think this is what I think that should be done. And maybe because of time, I have to stop and hope to join you in the main panel discussion where I can elaborate more on all of this. I want to thank you for your attention and for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Prof. It was very interesting indeed. I must say the one thing that just strikes me, and then I'll just give us as well as the audience some numbers. If we look at 4 million tons per annum of green hydrogen production as a target, say by 2040, which would make South Africa not a market leader, but a strong competitor in terms of global exports, as well as would be putting us on the road to strong decarbonization of key industries. So, for example, like steel and cement. So to put that in sort of context, that would be about 55 gigawatts of electrolysis, about 70 gigawatts of PV, and 30 gigawatts of wind. And if we reflect on maybe, even if we take Medupi and Kusile, we've probably built 10 gigawatts of generation capacity in maybe 15 years, maybe even longer. We've got to build another 100 gigawatts in the next 20 years, and that's without IRP, which probably has another 50 gigawatts. So, and I then think, okay, 55 gigawatts of electrolysis just for South Africa. Currently, what the biggest electrolysis units probably 2 megawatt stacks put together for 20 megawatts, and the sort of the biggest sort of units around that are of multiple electrolysis stacks are sort of coming towards 100 megawatts. I mean, the scale of where we're trying to get to, Prof, just seems staggering. So I hear the encouragement around, certainly from the minister and from yourself, says that we can do it. We do have some centers of excellence, but I'm struggling to see how we're going to bridge the gap in terms of scale and pace. So I think it's going to be very interesting. But I mean, I would, if you would like to comment quickly, because we do have a sort of a 10-15 minute window here just for Q&A, and then we can see what questions are coming through from the audience as well. But I don't know if you've got any thoughts on scale and pace, Prof. Can we get there? This is a huge challenge.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you, James. Yes, remember from our NDP and what's the other program where the country has? It's going to be energy mix. We're talking about energy mix here. I know the scale is too much, and it's not. We're not going to say, well, what will drive electricity in the country will be just electrolysis, and the fuel cell. There will be other energy technologies that should be on board to help achieve the 100% renewable. So I hear you already know. I'm sure you know that even Germany is almost the 100% renewable. The scale is not a big thing. That is why I'm talking about the issue of engineering. We need is a multidisciplinary subject. We need a host of engineers from electrical to chemical to mechanical do that, and they are not afraid of the skills, those skills that you are talking about. And I also know that you are an engineer, if I remember very well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. So let's maybe just take a question from the audience here. See, what plans are there from the department to ensure that technology management and intellectual property skills are in place in order to improve the country's innovation strategy? We don't have the minister with us to answer, but maybe, I don't know if I could bring Diksha in on this one. Because what strikes me, and I loved your little quick quote there, Prof, about attitude and aptitude. I think at some stage my teacher in high school told me that I might have aptitude, but if I've got bad attitude, I was still going to get bad grades. So it strikes me that maybe we could have a very sort of good narrow technical skills, but this question again says, do we have the broad skills? Do we have the experience? Do we have management? So can we drive innovation and strategy? Do we have skills for that could partner or be paired with good technical engineering skills? So I don't know how we broaden the definition of skills development a little bit. I don't know, Diksha, if you're in the chat room. Maybe not. Okay. So certainly, I think it's a very good point in terms of having to think more broadly about skills. It's not maybe just the technical engineering skills, but the application of those skills in the work environment means that you've got to have experience. You've got to understand innovation strategy. So skills development has to go more broadly and have a sort of a more broader partnership around that. Maybe also just the last question that came through from the audience: how can the reskilling of workers in the coal mining communities be coordinated to offer opportunities within the various green energy programs, such as green hydrogen? So certainly, doing work myself in sort of energy transition strategy and net zero. And it goes back to the earlier quote that I said, the Stone Age didn't end because it ran out of stones. So I think this question is very important in that it goes to the heart of the just energy transition. So will all coal miners be able to be reskilled to green hydrogen workers? Probably the answer is quite quickly a no, because maybe green hydrogen is in a different location and they don't want to move. Maybe they want to retire and they don't want to work in a factory. They've worked in a mine. There could be many reasons why a coal mining job doesn't equal a green energy or a hydrogen job. So I think that transitioning jobs and reskilling is not a one-to-one solution. We have to think more deeper, and maybe I think it's referenced. Prof, you've referenced it. The minister referenced it, and Diksha referenced it. The partnerships between public sector, private sector, and academia have to go deeper than just saying I might lose 100,000 jobs in coal mining, but I've created 150,000 jobs in green hydrogen. Therefore, everything is good. The social compact with communities to understand what would happen to that community and how do other communities get built in different locations, I think it's a very complicated matter. So not that I have the answer at this stage. I mean, you're welcome to comment on that, Prof. What are your thoughts?
No, but I think you answered it correctly. There is no way, if I understand the question properly, there is no way because you're in the mining, everybody there would be accommodated in the hydrogen economy. It's not going to happen. That's the straight answer to that, if I understand the question again. So, but the thing is that there will be reskilling. There will be reskilling as we move from one technology to another. That is why you get it has always been known that even in simple economies, it is difficult for people to move, people to change what they are doing to start something new. There is this, the hesitancy to move. But before you know that, everybody will get onto it. It's just a question of the mind working on their psyche and all that. I believe that those people, I give example of some students I know who you just teach them broadly, give them broad education and the kind of education that will allow them to be ready for a change in job. That's the kind of education we should be doing, and that is what we are doing. Nobody is born to die in one particular career. It is not possible, but you should be able to move. It is very easy. Before I give an example, even before the COVID-19 happened, which the minister also talked about, nobody knew that even academics will be able to be giving lectures from home, or we're doing this kind of conferencing we are doing now with ease. But it has become part of us. Everything now is becoming hybrid. Every conference is now hybrid. That is the way the world will be for a long time to come, if not forever. We're not going to go back to where we used to be. So that is going to happen. The same thing in hydrogen and green hydrogen or renewable energy. People will be scared. Everybody will be accommodated. We shouldn't be worried about what will happen. People will still be doing their job. Mining is mining. Somebody who's doing mining will continue to do their mining to get the raw materials to drive the hydrogen economy. Hydrogen economy is, I say, as I showed you in my slide, you require electrocatalysts. And those electrocatalysts, the most important one there is the platinum group metals. But because platinum group metals are very expensive and precious for that matter, you do not want to waste them. South Africa happens to be the only country that controls almost 80% of the global reserve of platinum. This is why the world is so envious of us. The trend now is to find alternative minerals or minerals that can be combined with small amounts of these precious materials that can still do the job of electrocatalysis there, be able to reduce oxygen, be able to hydrolyze, oxidize hydrogen to generate energy. So the mining sector will still be there. We need them. We need all the minerals to be able to help that. So I don't believe that people will lose their job or they will not have job anymore. So that's my answer to that.
I think that you're quite right, Prof. I actually recently gave a talk to at a school level, and the one thing I said, at PwC, we don't hire people who are looking for a job. We hire people who are passionate, who show business innovation and a potential for leadership. Good. We don't mind what you went and studied. You could be an engineer, anything, but those things is what will make you employable, not
Absolutely.
a job. Good. Okay, well, that's fantastic. So on that note, let's take a break, and we'll be back at 1:45 for, I think, an exciting panel discussion. For me, really, there's a lot of opportunity here. We all align on the opportunity. We want to go and grab this opportunity for our country. I love the way the Prof says that everyone is jealous of us. But the reality is that as an economy, we're not in good shape. We've heard that. And so we need to move quickly. I've emphasized the fact that we need to move at scale. So maybe we're not moving quick enough. We're not quite getting in the right direction and in the right space. And we will get left behind as an economy in this green hydrogen sort of global development. So what do we do? what does government need to do? What does private sector need to do in order to pull this back, accelerate, and for South Africa to really be a global leader in green hydrogen? So looking forward to that panel discussion, but we'll take a break now and be back in 10 minutes. Thank you so much. There we go, back off mute. Very good afternoon. Welcome back. So I just want to check in with the back office. Maybe we could have a quick look and see how we're doing on what is it called, on our word cloud. Maybe how the audience are feeling. Hold on, I'm just going to close my. Apologies, people walking through in the corridor. Okay, so let's move on to the panel. I'm sure we'll come back to the word cloud and check. Please also, this is an open Q&A, so feel free to post good, contentious, and difficult questions that will make the panelists think hard, and so that we can respond and have a good debate. The one person who will be panelist who will be joining us, who we haven't introduced, is Mr. Tlhabane, the Chief Director at the Department of Basic Education. He's currently responsible for mathematics, science, and technology education, for ICTs in education at the department. He's represented the Department of Education in over 20 international conferences and global in 17 countries. Led Operation Pakisa Education Lab, and has led the process of developing and coding robotics curriculum. He's been responsible for managing multilateral cooperation with Cuba, South Korea, China, Japan, France in maths and science technology partnership programs. So I can't think of anyone more appropriate, so very welcome, Mr. Tlhabane. So just talking to our organizers at the back office, we're going to pull up the panelists. Okay, Mr. Tlhabane, you have a quick presentation that you are going to share with us first.
James, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Yes, James. So just to
fine.
reiterate, Mr. Tlhabane will do his presentation and then we'll bring up the panelists.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
you. Thank you, Mr. Tlhabane. If you can proceed, thank you.
Well, then on that basis, I've introduced you in a very warm welcome. Hopefully you've been listening to some of the discussion beforehand, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. I really like the idea that you've led such difficult partnerships around skills and development, because it seems that certainly is an aspect we've got to better understand. So please go ahead. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. And let me greet the Honorable Minister, if the Minister is still here with us, and greet the entire leadership of the Indaba senior managers from government and from corporate, from academia, and delegates of this Indaba. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of the Department of Basic Education to participate on behalf of the Director General in this Indaba and share some of the plans that the Department of Basic Education is putting in place to prepare learners for the world of work, as it is the responsibility of every education system across the world to prepare its young citizens for the world of work. And I've got a small presentation that I'll be running through just to share with you some of the work that we are doing as basic education to ensure that we equip our learners with knowledge, with skills, and with competencies that they will require for the future jobs, as predicted by academia and as predicted by research, to prepare them for the ever-changing world and the 4 IR. I will not get much into the purpose, but as I indicated, every education system across the world has a responsibility to prepare its young citizens for the world of work and to ensure that they possess the necessary body of knowledge, the type of skills and competencies that will enable them to function effectively in society. Basic education provides foundation to learning, and we then let these children articulate into post-schooling programs through universities and other institutions of higher learning like TVET colleges and community colleges. The responsibility of the Department of Basic Education to prepare learners for the 4IR and 21st century enjoins us to be in a position to provide them with a curriculum that is going to make these learners problem solvers, that they are going to think critically, they are going to be able to work collaboratively in collaborative environment and work in teams, be creative, possess digital skills, and be able to work in an information-driven world. It is our vision as a Department of Basic Education to develop computational thinking skills in our learners, as research points to the fact that any citizen who does not possess digital skills will not be able to function appropriately in the world of work in future. UNESCO and the SDG 4 enjoins us to ensure that our learners have digital literacy skills. And the Department of Basic Education has just developed a new curriculum that will ensure that our learners are taught digital skills. And this curriculum, the subject, we have decided to call it coding and robotics. The SDG 4 as well enjoins us to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education for all, and that we need to promote lifelong learning opportunities for all our learners. Our blueprint document, the National Development Plan, places a responsibility on the basic education to improve equitable access to ICT services that will require action to stimulate the demand of use of such by the country and by our learners. And at most fundamental level of illiteracy needs to be improved through structured programs. And the Department of Education, you would remember that the President, in his State of the Nation address, gave marching orders to the basic education to say, by the end of this administration, the vision of this government is to have every child having a tablet in their own hands. It is a high toll, it is not an easy task, but we're working against the vision that has been created by our political head. SONA says we have to prepare our young people for the jobs of the future. And as I indicated, the Department of Education, when it introduces new subjects, it ensures that a number of things are in place. But when you talk about the jobs of the future, we need to understand that there are skills that every citizen must possess. Historically, there were skills like reading and writing, which we agreed as the world that every citizen of the world needed to possess for those citizens, or for the citizen to be able to operate and function effectively in society. We as Department of Basic Education, we put programs in place. You'd remember a lot of people who are in this Indaba may remember the era of night schools, when we were reaching out to the adult population of our country, giving them reading and writing skills because they needed those skills for them to survive and operate in society. We then went on to say every citizen needed to possess the arithmetic skills, the numbers that we needed to operate and make sense of numbers. Just to fast forward, we are at the point where the world is saying nobody is going to be able to function effectively in future if they do not possess the digital skills. So the basic education has responded to this demand of the fourth industrial revolution by developing the coding and the robotics curriculum. And this is the type of world that our children will be existing in, and our classrooms will look like this as we plan our introduction of coding and robotics. We are at the point where we have already identified 200 schools, as announced by the president, primary schools for grade R to 3 that are going to pilot this curriculum that we have just developed. And these are the numbers per province in terms of how many schools are going to be part of the pilot in grade R to 3, which is the foundation phase. We are the first country in the world that has developed the curriculum for grade R up to 3, meaning foundation phase. Research says countries elsewhere, they have started in the intermediate phase, what you call grade 4 upwards. So the world is looking at South Africa as a pioneer of this new curriculum that is taught. And our experts in South Africa, including academia and the industry, indicated that children begin to code when they are about 4 years old. They are able to integrate and interface with technology when they are just about 4 years old. So we then took the brave step of taking this. We will be looking with great anticipation at the results of this pilot as we'll be sharing it with the world. To introduce any new subject, there are 5 things that must be in place. 1, there must be a curriculum that is written. 2, we need to train teachers, skill them appropriately, and ensure that they are able to teach these new skills and the competencies and the body of knowledge that they need to impart to the learners, as well as train subject advisors. 3, we need to develop LTSM, what you call in ordinary language for every citizen to understand. These are learning and teaching support materials or textbooks as we generally know them. We don't introduce a subject unless we have developed textbooks that are going to be used by teachers as well as learners. 4, schools must be ready. If the subject needs schools to be resourced, then the department has a responsibility to ensure that schools are appropriately resourced. When we introduce technology subjects, we need to build workshops and ensure that the workshops have machines, machinery, and the equipment that would allow children to offer those subjects. When we introduce physical science, we must build laboratories that will ensure that children will conduct experiments. When we introduce a digital skills curriculum like coding and robotics, we need to ensure that we provide children and schools with robotics kits that are going to be able to utilize as they learn this subject. 5, we need to have proper examination and assessment guidelines. Every teacher in the country who's going to teach this subject must have clear protocols and a clear understanding of how this subject must be assessed, what type of assessment tasks must be administered, the frequency of administration, whether there'll be examinations, whether there'll be experiments, whether there'll be practicals, or there will be projects. Assessment tasks, a teacher in Limpopo, in Polokwane, and a teacher in Langa, in Cape Town, must have a common understanding as they teach this subject as to what is that needs to be taught. Just a quick progress on where we are as a department in terms of preparing our learners for the changing world, for the world of work, particularly equipping them with digital skills that they are also going to need to operate and work within the hydrogen economy environment, as this will be infested with technology, the utilization of computers and machinery, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality. We are preparing the learners to be able to function effectively within that type of economy, which is the hydrogen economy. In January of last year, 2020, the department developed the curriculum. The curriculum, its development, we worked with business, we worked with 6 government departments, we worked with our teacher unions, we worked with 5 universities who assigned academia to come and guide us on what type of knowledge must get into the curriculum and the type of skills that must be embedded in the curriculum. We worked with the NGO sector. This curriculum was submitted to our Quality Council, which is Umalusi, for evaluation and quality assurance. And Umalusi has completed the process, and they have given us the curriculum with their comments on what do they think about this. The minister gazetted this draft policy, invited the public to comment on this. And I hope that some of you who are in this Indaba saw when the minister invited the public, and that you may have submitted your comments, and that those comments are going to be very critical in us finalizing this curriculum before minister promulgate it into policy. The slide here just shows you how inclusive the process of writing the curriculum was. Now, the synopsis of the curriculum, how it looks like, and what is it that is going to teach in our coding and robotics, that we're going to teach children pattern recognition and problem solving, algorithms and coding, the robotic skills, Internet of Things and communication skills, application skills, how to develop apps and how to get those apps to get them to program robots that they are going to build. And as we move on to the higher grades, that is how it looks like. Just to give you a sense, we decided that this subject is going to be a standalone subject, and it is not going to be integrated into the existing subjects, because we have learned from history that subjects and concepts that are integrated in the existing subjects are in most instances not taught by teachers when they become uncomfortable with them. An example, in mathematics, a lot of teachers are still struggling to teach Euclid and geometry, for instance. And as a result, they spend a lot of time in algebra. And when children have to go to sit for the examination, we realize that there are a lot of gaps in terms of the work that was covered in terms of Euclid and geometry. But we are working as a sector to ensure that we give our teachers the competence and the confidence to be able to teach these subjects. It was for that reason that we said anything that teachers would feel uncomfortable with, there will be the propensity to leave it and not teach it, so that this subject receives attention from teachers. It is for that reason that we decided that it is going to be a standalone subject. I will stop at this point because I look at my time. I've already covered the time that I was given, but the following slides indicate that we are upskilling our teachers. We are working with universities to train them, to make them ready to be able to teach this new subject. The slides here show you the number of teachers that we are training for the pilot and the subject advisors. And this is just the progress with regards to the model of the training itself, that for the first time, we are training our teachers using technology. We have already conducted orientation for grade R to 3 and grade 4 throughout the country, and we used for the first time our workshops on digital platform. It was exciting for teachers, and to see how teachers have taken up the technology, and that we are transforming the basic education sector. We are preparing children for the world of the future that includes the hydrogen economy, and we hope that we'll be working with universities as children transition and articulate into the universities, that they will possess the necessary skills that are going to make them to be able to enter the job market, and prepared, equipped with the skills that the job market will require in future. Chairperson, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very fascinating presentation. I feel very enlightened about and encouraged about what's going on at our school. So thank you for that, Mr. Tlhabane. So let's switch back onto the panel and welcome back into the conversation Diksha, welcome, and Prof. So Prof from Brics and Diksha from PwC. So maybe before we kind of get into the debate, if I kind of reflect a little bit on the discussions that we've had today, I start with Diksha. You gave us a model and some methodology about thinking about the supply and demand of skills. I think it's, and again, I think that, from the supply side, is it the right time and the right skills in the right place? And then reflect on the demand side and say, well, is the market receptive? It worries me that, if we look since COVID, maybe what we've lost about 500,000 jobs in this country in order of magnitude. So then I kind of switched into the minister's presentation, which I think was very positive and showed that the emphasis from DSI on TVETs and government support is very clear. But again, did seem to be narrowly focused on specific skills and specifically from the DSI's perspective. I sensed that there was a lack of overall connection and plan around the transition and things like the just energy transition and green hydrogen economy. Prof, we then went to, I was really, really impressed again to see that we are developing real quality people at a higher education level, at the PhD level. I think it was very encouraging. I thought that as a country, we'd probably had lost a lot of that ability in our university. So I was extremely encouraged. But again, what struck me is maybe the coordination and planning and the numbers. So this is almost like a numbers game. And then again, with Labani, again, I was very encouraged that we're making the right commitments, moving in the right direction. But it comes back to this, my question earlier, that if we've got to build and invest at least 8 to 10 times faster than what we are currently doing, that's kind of the challenge that we faced with as a country. And the question ultimately kind of goes along the lines that if we can't do that, then we can't be a leader in this global hydrogen economy, and we won't realize the 2.5 trillion rand capital investment and probably the few 100,000 jobs that goes with it. So we will essentially stay a poor country in a developing country. So what do we need to do differently to create that scale and speed? And maybe I could start, Diksha, with you from a new world, new skills, and as a person who consults on these things with corporates and organizations and even at government level. Yeah. What would your suggestions be of how we speed up and scale up?
James, I would say, sorry, let me just remove this. I would say that we firstly need to learn or take in lessons learned from other countries like Brazil. They have also been trying to leverage or build this industry, and there's some issues that they face. So firstly, learning from them. The other aspect of it is really planning. So I tried to emphasize it in the presentation earlier as well, and I think that that's a key. We cannot try to reach that 2040 baseline or aspiration if we don't plan properly. And again, it goes back, I think it was mentioned through all of the talks today about private sector, public sector, the government and the institutions, basic and higher education, working together. Because if I can tell you, just from a strategic workforce planning perspective or planning scenarios, you cannot just rely on private sector or higher education or government to do it in isolation. We won't get it right. So I think for us to really realize that is the starting point for us to unite and map that vision for the future out properly.
Thank you. I mean, I like the partnership comment. It also reminds me in the recent SID symposium, our president opening address for Infrastructure South Africa said that partnerships is at the heart of it, and we sometimes say it's public and private, but actually his emphasis was on public to public. So coordination within the public sector, within ministries, between SOEs, etc., was an important emphasis. Prof, maybe just to come back to you, if we say, fine, we're developing the quality, but I'm sure that you must realize that your budgets are thin We think we've seen over the last, especially since COVID, NSFAS, etc., have really struggled to keep up. Do we have enough investment? Can we really say that we can finance this program? What do we do differently?
Yeah. You already know what happened during in my presentation. Remember, I did say about the paucity of funds. The government, and you actually said it right, that we're still struggling. Where is the money? The universities are barely surviving now in terms of research. Most of the fund is now going to the undergraduate students, and yet it's not even enough to keep our undergraduate students in the university. Even the master's students, you need to read the NRF and the DSI funding policies now for students. It is a bit chaotic, if I have to use that word. So because of, and you don't blame the government, because the money is not there. The money is not there. When there was money, we saw how the government actually funded research. I've been a witness to that. But since when they said what was that again? School fees must fall. There was a reprioritization of things in the government circle, coupled with the COVID again. For the first time, the government had to borrow a lot of money, from international. So, yeah. The only way we can do that, like Diksha said, is we have to plan very well, and then we collaborate. We have to partner with people, with other international colleagues that are in the business for us to do that. Because there is no, tell me what you are doing today that you think you can do better without collaboration. And we have always had this proverb. They say it is an African proverb. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, then you must work with other people. That is about teamwork, collaboration, partnership. We may have, we can. I said it before, even though I remember I talked about our PGM. We are very rich in mineral resources, yet we are poor. We are struggling. However, if there may be other, not there may be, there will be other countries who have the money. They don't have the minerals. And we can leverage that. We can say, okay, we bring our minerals, you bring your money, we partner with you. We can use the Brazilian protocol, the one Diksha was talking about. And I think that's the only way to go. We really have to partner. And yeah.
Thank you. I see Dr. Rebecca's just come back onto the panel. Welcome. We have a few questions from the panel, from the audience for you for the DSI, which I will ask now. But if I can just quickly switch to Mr. Tlhabane on the point of kind of partnerships. I was looking just recently more from an infrastructure development perspective, but what struck me was that learning and culture is the biggest line item in terms of the NTF, so government spend of 1.23 trillion rand allocated for learning and culture. So we're already allocating money to education, but as the Prof has highlighted, it's not enough. It's not going far enough. We're not scaling up. I mean, in your experience, and it seems that you have done very well at the basic education level, but how do we create deeper partnerships? How do we get this aspect broader, and so that we can move quicker and maybe get the private sector more involved? I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Thank you, James. Definitely, government cannot do this alone, and we surely need business to come to the party. And one cannot give an impression at this point that business has not made some contribution. We have received support from business in terms of resourcing some of our programs that we are running as government. The mobile network operators have played a very critical role, especially within the 4IR space, by assisting us to provide our schools with ICTs. And that needs to be acknowledged. Within our infrastructure build program, business has come to the party to some extent to assist us to eradicate some of the pit latrines that we are still struggling with at this point, but we have made huge progress with the Director General having taken this and the Minister taking this upon themselves and committing to the nation that by 2024 they would have eradicated the pit latrines challenge that we have. We have had business come in to assist us with issues of eradicating poverty in terms of our food nutrition program. We have business that has come in to assist us with digitizing and developing our textbooks, and we acknowledge this. But I think business need to come in more to the party. You'd remember that Minister established the National Education Collaboration Trust, the NECT, to be a vehicle with which business is going to support us as basic education instead of giving us bits and pieces of money, that the NECT was going to be used as a vehicle through which support from private sector is going to be channeled into the Department of Basic Education. The CEO of NECT, Mr. Godwin Khoza, has done some great work in mobilizing business. But I think business still need to do more to support this initiative and the CEO of the NECT in terms of making resources available. The trillion rands that we are looking at over the MTSF, it looks like it's a lot. But when you look at all the priorities that we have to address, having to undo the damage that was done by 300 years of an unjust system of government of the previous regime, it is going to take us a long time. We are not moving as fast as we should, but we are definitely making some movements. We would like to be much further than we are at the moment, but we truly appreciate the business that has come on board.
Well, thank you for your comments. I think it's a very good idea to think about a fund that could be contributed in many different ways, international, local, and government, to help stimulate skills development in the hydrogen economy. So I think that's a good one. We'll take that one away. Thanks, Mr. Tlabani. Maybe let's just go back to Rebecca. So the questions was, how does the private sector engage with DSI for developing the hydrogen economy? And the second one, has the DSI engaged with other member countries of the Brics for strategic partnerships? Thanks very much.
Okay. No, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, sorry. So in terms of the first question around private sector and how do we partner? In terms of the triple helix partnerships, academia, private sector, and government, what you need is coordinating or organizing frameworks. And the best way to do that is by coordinating around projects that can make sure that all three partners actually benefit. So one of the things that we know is that deployments of technologies in partnership with government, private sector are critical parts of this, because we need to, in some cases, test the technologies in South African soil, but at the same time, with economies of scale, you can actually get the total cost or the cost of ownership down. So what we've done is we as DSI have initiated what we call a Platinum Valley, which is looking at projects linking Limpopo province, Gauteng, through to KZN. This project or this initiative was launched, or portions of it were launched on the 8th of October a few weeks ago, in partnership with three organizations: Bambili Energy, Anglo-American Platinum, and Engie, which is a French energy company. And we actually launched the study, which is, I would say, the first phase. So what this gives is opportunities for different sectors: oil and gas, so Sasol's, Department of Public Works and Infrastructure with public buildings, Department of Defense when it comes to critical infrastructure, even transport sector around mobility, buses, heavy duty trucks, to partner together in this corridor. Is 838, I think, kilometers, to look at the scale up and deployment of fuel cell technologies. What's embedded in this is that actually aspects of research, development, innovation, because again, you need to bring the total cost of green hydrogen production down, but also allows funding to be put together through private sector and public sector to bring total costs down. So that is what I'm putting forward. And this project was presented at the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium of South Africa a few weeks ago, and will be also presented at COP26 by South Africa. So that's the first question. And then in terms of the second question that you're asking about Brics. In terms of Brics, there is we have a number of forums that we work with. And this is more or less focused on our research, development, innovation. So there is a Brics forum or strategic platform that meets every year in October, and it's the New and Renewable Energy Brics platform. So this is a working group where we identify areas of common interest in research and development, and the areas which were the focal point for the next 3 years are renewable energy. So this is just renewable power fuels, as well as issues of green hydrogen. And this is green hydrogen coming from either offshore, onshore wind, solar PV, as well as biomass, because countries like India have a keen interest. There's a call for proposals for joint collaboration research projects that the National Research Foundation, which is the entity under the Department of Science and Innovation, has issued calls. So that is how in the RDI space we are partnering with Brics.
Excellent. Well, that was very informative. Thank you, Dr. Marisimule. Let's just see if there are any other questions coming through from the audience. Don't want to leave you out. Here's one for Mr. Tlhabane. Programs to retain and reskill teachers are very important. Otherwise, the entire exercise will be futile. Does your pilot project include schools in rural areas? So maybe there's two questions rolled into that. And it also, I think, reflects back on the prof's comments that how we are losing people at the top end who are trained. So how do we retain skilled people and teachers, maybe? Your thoughts, Mr. Tlhabane?
Thank you very much, James. Yes, the selection of our pilot schools include all types of schools. Public ordinary schools, schools for learners with special education needs, schools in the townships, in the cities, in the rural areas. Because when you pilot a curriculum and you test it, you can't just test it in one area, for instance, in the cities, and assume that it will be well implemented as well in rural areas. So you test it in all environments. So the answer to that is yes. Schools in the rural areas are included. The response to the second question is, as I indicated, that there are 5 things that must be in place, 5 pillars when we introduce the curriculum. One of those pillars is teacher training and orientation of our subject advisors. So teacher training is very critical, and our approach is that teachers are the differentiator. Even when we bring technology into the teaching space, teachers remain to be at the center of what must happen inside of the classroom. Technology must not replace the teachers, but the technology must be a tool that the teacher are going to utilize. The question of losing teachers, particularly at the top end, the answer is yes. basic education has always lost teachers, particularly the maths and science teachers, that we lose them to industry, that because they're easily absorbable in the world of work or in industry, we always lose them. So it's a challenge that we always live with. Some of the top teachers that we had have since left basic education and have pursued other careers. When IT, about 15 years ago, became fashionable as a career, a lot of teachers began to enroll for programs to become programmers in IT. And these teachers, they're so easy to lose to industry. The answer to the question is yes. But when people take up other opportunities, there's something or there's nothing that we can do to keep them, especially when they are offered better living conditions and better paying jobs. It remains to be a challenge. So the answer to that is yes. We lose teachers all the time, but our universities are working very hard all the time to ensure that the pipeline in terms of supply of teachers will assist us to at least cope with the demand inside of the classroom.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Mr. Tlhabane. I have a question maybe for Dr. Marisamule, if you can, as from a sort of ministerial perspective. So when we look at the scale of the green hydrogen sector, we certainly see that there is a drive, one for production, which is an industrial sort of component and drive. We see a drive to decarbonize our economy, which is an environmental drive. We see an energy component in terms of reliable and affordable energy. So we have a DMRE component there. We also see this is a large integrated capital scale of investment. So, entities like Infrastructure South Africa, you've referenced, and sitting in potentially organizations like the Infrastructure Fund and the DBSA. So all of these sort of departments also have a role, and certainly then we also reference again research and development and skills and under DSI. How do you see that the public sector will coordinate and start to have a single master plan and a single view of who's leading, who's supporting, what gets prioritized, what gets accelerated, and we know that we can't afford the 2.5 trillion rand, so we've got to create partnerships, and we've got to be very clever with the money in the country balance sheet we do have. So again, how do we balance and get the most out of what we've got as a country in order to really develop and deliver the best benefits? Your thoughts on that?
Okay. No, thanks so much for that question. I think they always say it's not what you do, but how you do it and how quickly you do it that actually makes a difference. Even, we're looking at the total cost of our green hydrogen, based on our resources. And we can be competitive with countries who are looking at below $2 per kilogram. We're looking at just above. But if the speed of the legislative and administrative processes, or what we call LAPs, takes too long, that project that's going for implementation could, if you extend the lifetime of that project, you're actually increasing the total cost of putting in place the CAPEX or OPEX for that green hydrogen or ammonia to be produced. So in terms of saying who's in charge, I would say I'll probably give you the standard answer that I received when I first joined government 10 years ago. It's presidency. They are in charge. Even when I was in high school, the executive authority of any country, no matter if you're in the US, UK, Australia, Brazil, is the presidency. They are taking ownership. They are taking leadership in this. Through the Infrastructure South Africa, they had a conference, like I said, 2 weeks ago, and they actually mentioned I would say 3 swim lines, one around mobility and mining, one around green hydrogen, and the last swim line was really around industry, especially decarbonization. So they've given the prioritization of this under the South African Economic Recovery and Reconstruction Plan. And really, it's for government departments to get around and coalesce around presidency. and make sure this happens. So when you get an order, you take it. And I think that even, not losing out my colleague from Department of Basic Education, they're extremely important in this journey as well. Because if we're looking at the next 20 to 30 years, right, we're going to need the outputs of the basic education system to make sure that we have qualified engineers and mathematicians ready to go into university to then even get technicians and so forth. So I think that I feel very confident that we have a plan of action. And I think that, there's many meetings going on behind the scenes between different government officials where we are, we have different task teams and workshops. We're all working together. And in most cases, we're either using similar data sets, but also in some case, to inform policies across different departments where their mandates need to be met, but also same team members are being used in different processes. So, I've participated in the Hydrogen Society Roadmap process, but also I'm on the Green Hydrogen panel that's being led under the leadership of Minister Patel. So one government, many departments is all I can say.
Thank you. I think it was a very informative and very helpful. We're largely out of time, but I would like a last question just to direct to Diksha. So I think we've spoken quite a lot about the public sector side and what's happening from the policy and public sector sort of developments or initiatives. In your experience, how is the private sector preparing and how sort of advanced are they and sort of committed in driving these sort of same sort of agendas and comments, but on the private sector side of the fence?
Sure, thanks, James. I think just from a private sector perspective, and I mentioned it in my presentation as well, you see private sector organizations actually teaming together and collaborating together. I'll give you the example of PwC now with ABSA to actually start helping to build skills, technology skills. And I think we also mentioned it earlier, it's not just specific STEM type of skills or skills related to the specific sector, but it's also those softer skills, leadership skills, learning to learn, computational skills, all of those type of base skills that are very relevant. So you see a lot of movement within the private sector. I think internally within organizations as well, there's a massive drive to upskill individuals. Sorry, my voice. And we're not just talking about, a lot of the conversation was about building the pipeline from basic to higher education, but it's also around the current workforce that we have now. We have individuals who have been in roles for a number of years, and making this transition, which has been accelerated by technology, by COVID, by changes in industries and movements like that, has made a massive impact on the type of jobs that are available, roles and skills. So I think that's where the private sector also plays a very critical role in ensuring that we are upskilling the current workforce. And the major issue we've picked up is not just people's willingness to upskill and reskill, but there's this issue of almost unskilling individuals. So to take away learned behavior so that they can embrace technology. And that's where I see the private sector playing a big part just on its own, but also desperately trying to support the public sector in ensuring that we do build this pipeline going forward.
No, thank you very much. Well, I think we are largely out of time for the panel discussion, but certainly Mr. Tlhabane, Dr. Marisimula, Prof. Ken, and Ms. Lalith, you've been very eloquent and very insightful. And I think in the spirit of skills and development, I'm not a skills and development practitioner, but I've learned a lot today. So I feel that I have been upskilled and developed. So I would like to thank you for your time and your insights. It was very, very interesting. Thank you very much. We're going to hand over to Mr. Romano as the sort of founder of the hydrogen economy in Indaba to wrap up with some comments and then to bid you farewell for the day. But from my side, it's been a pleasure, been very insightful, and thank you very much for the opportunity also to discuss with you. Over to you, Mr. Romano.
Good afternoon to Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you, James. Trying to share the screen so I can make some summary observations.
Mr. Romano, you haven't shared your screen. You need to share your screen with us, please. If you click share at the bottom. All right, Mr. Romano has dropped off. James, can I bring you back up? And maybe you can do a little summation so long of what we've got, and then I'll bring Mr. Romano in once he's back.
Well, okay. Okay, so we're having some technical challenges there. So, not to steal Mr. Romano's thunder, what I would like maybe just to kind of highlight again, I think that the scale and the opportunity here is significant. I think that certainly, as I said earlier, I've been very pleasantly surprised or enlightened about the pockets of excellence in the skills and development sector. But what is still missing for me is the ability to aggregate and to accelerate. So the concept of being able to build out this hydrogen economy at 8 to 10 times quicker than anything else that we've done in the past, we somehow need a policy coherence platform, a sector master plan, and a lot of collaboration and partnerships in order to get that done. And I think that if that we have this aspiration at a political country and at a private sector business industry level that says this is a huge opportunity for South Africa to reposition in the global economy. This will be a future global energy market, which will be tradable. And so we have a competitive advantage that we can be a leader in this. As I've said earlier, I mean, this is worth significant amount of money in foreign direct investment, in job creation, in foreign earnings, and important to positioning our economy in the energy transition and net zero. But if we don't get there, what are the consequences? And the consequences, if we can't decarbonize over the next 20 years, we will fall behind as an economy. Our industries will not survive. We know that in 20 years' time, no one is going to be selling internal combustion or fuel-driven vehicles. So we won't have the same automotive sector that we have now. We may have no automotive sector. We're certainly not going to be selling coal mines or exporting coal. So coal will be gone. So we have to find ways to replace the fossil fuel energy component of our industry and our economy. And green hydrogen is this opportunity of resetting the world stage, because all countries are starting from scratch. So it feels in a sense that it's not an option for us to say, well, we might or we might not get there. So I think that going back, I would again iterate that, yes, we've got the opportunity, we've got sort of centers of excellence. It feels that we have got the ambition and the willingness to do it, but I'm still struggling to really get to grips with the sector master plan, the inherent or complete policy, and the investment. And I think that what wraps that together are really deep public-to-public partnerships. I think there's a lot of collaboration between ministries, as we said earlier, as well as then public-to-private partnerships, both local private partnerships. We've seen the likes of Sasol, Anglo, and a number of other sort of companies coming in who are very keen to provide partnerships. We also need bilateral partnerships. If we look at the EU and programs like H2 Global out of Germany, they have significant funds available, which we need to go and target. So government needs to take the lead on some of those partnerships, but we need to bring our own private sector and industry along in developing those partnerships. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, but the opportunity is significant, and timing is not on our side. So we do need to move with speed. I think that Mr. Romano is back. Yes, there we go. Welcome back, Mr. Romano. Over to you for closing remarks.
Thank you. I thought I should remind the participants in this Indaba, and I like the way that Professor Ozwimina described it. So we are about the electrochemistry of hydrogen. And I wanted to remind everyone that there is no economy without the earth. There is no economy without the fundamental elements of nature. Next slide. So we are talking here about hydrogen, skills development for the hydrogen economy. And all the speakers touched on what is on this slide. And the one that I really want to emphasize is the one below life and career skills. That is learning to live with others. The reason we have challenges with the environment, the reason we have challenges with non-human nature is that we have not learned to live in harmony with nature. That is one of the skills that needs to be emphasized in addition to the skills of collaboration, the skills of creativity, the skills of ICT, digital, and so forth. We need to learn to live with others, human and non-human others. Next slide. So, are we going to be able to do it as South Africa? And this is a big question mark for me. If you look at all the countries that have developed or that have a higher development index in the world, there is a correlation between the number of higher institutions of learning and their rate of economic development. If you look at America, it's got the second largest universities in the world, and it's the biggest economy in the world. India has got the largest number of economies in the world. It's the seventh largest, I think it's the seventh largest economy in the world. And China has got the third largest universities in the world and is the second largest economy. I'm mixing my figures a little bit this afternoon. But if you look at South Africa, we only have 121 colleges and institutions at post-matric level. This is a serious capacity challenge that we have. And so as we talk about the hydrogen economy future, we need to be saying, do we have sufficient capacity to be able to prepare our youth and prepare our children for this upcoming transformation and revolution? I really want to thank the speakers for bringing in some very interesting insights into this challenge and debate today. Diksha reminded us about workforce transformation, a new world which requires new skills. This is, she said, the time to change the way we live. I couldn't agree more with her. The hydrogen economy requires fundamental shifts in our attitude to one another and in our attitude to non-human nature. And she mentioned something also very important, that we need to align the upskilling with the future requirements in terms of the workforce. Mr. Tlhabane reminded us that we need to have learners taught about the hydrogen economy at a fairly young age. You know, when Professor Oziomina was talking, he referred to a visit that he did to the city of Ulm in Germany. Now, I don't know if many of you know that Albert Einstein, one of the best-known scientists of the 20th century, was born in the city of Ulm. And if you read his biography, it will tell you that they were playing mathematical and scientific games as kids. So he started learning as a youth about maths, about science. And in the Roman Catholic Church, they will tell you that if you want to have a Roman Catholic priest take a child between the ages of 0 and 7, they will give you back a Roman Catholic priest. So the importance of early childhood education for this is critical. And Mr. Tlhabane reminded us about that learners need to be taught collaborative, digital, and creative problem skills, that we need to focus significantly on teacher development programs. Professor Ozumina told us that the hydrogen economy is equal to electrochemistry. And he taught us that upskilling is transformational force from low-cost labor to technology augmented force. So this is a fundamental challenge that we have as South Africa. And I'm glad that Mr. Tlhabane is here, that I think we really need to change our attitude as the education department to science, mathematics, STEMI. We don't have to teach our children mathematic literacy. We can teach them in early stages, but when it goes to high school, we really need to emphasize seriously about mathematics, science, and technology. And Professor Ozumina was telling us that the education of our children in electrochemistry is fundamental and is important for our economy. And the solutions needs to be driven by partnerships and collaboration. And the minister, I'm going to summarize, he said, our country should be a significant player in the global hydrogen economy. He shared with us some of the activities that the Department of Science and Education is involved in preparing our youth and in preparing the TVET college system and in preparing the higher education system to reskill our children for this important development in our country. He emphasized that focus, this reskilling focus, must include the marginalized communities of our society, particularly women and youth. And he said something very fundamental to me. And he said, hydrogen is a story of hope. Yes, this is a story of hope. This is a story that is telling us that we need to take hold of this hydrogen element and use it to transform not only ourselves, but also our society and our economy. I think it was a very, very important topic to address. And I want to thank all the speakers who participated in this session, and particularly to James for moderating this episode 4 in such an excellent and professional manner. Our country should be a significant player in the global hydrogen economy, so says Minister Blayden Nzimande. And Minister Blayden Nzimande also said he likes the fact that there is a strong interest in hydrogen in this country based on the participation of many of you that have been with us from episode 1 through to episode 2 through to this episode today. So I would like to really and truly extend our grateful appreciation for your continued participation in this hydrogen economy in Indaba. The next session of the hydrogen economy in Indaba will be next week, and we're hoping to be debating the issues of the regulatory environment. What kind of policies do we need to make this hydrogen economy materialize and be realized in our country? We are planning another episode, which will be sometime in November, probably the 3rd or 4th week of November. And this will be looking at the issue that Professor Kenneth said when he was asked a question. And his response was, the money is not there, he said. The money is not there. So in this episode 5, we would like to debate the question, where is the money going to come from, to address and to make sure that we have a just transition to a globally competitive hydrogen economy in South Africa. We have not as yet finalized the speakers, but we have extended an invitation to Minister of Finance, Honorable Enoch Gondongwana. We have been in discussions with his office. He has not yet confirmed. We have a few international speakers in hydrogen who have invested in the hydrogen space. Some of them are venture capitalists that we have spoken to, who will be participating in episode 5. So please keep coming with your ideas. Keep admin busy with input and information on how we can make this hydrogen economy a reality for South Africa. Thank you all. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you once again to the speakers, and thank you to the platform providers at the back, Jackie and JDAV and the team. We really appreciate the way you have been assisting us with this platform. Many thanks. See you next time.